All right. Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right. Thank you for that confirmation, man. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 578. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. There's a document in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with if you want to engage in discussion. There'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. Also, make sure you update your Zoom client. The latest update is 5.1.2 that just came out today. So make sure you update your client before joining the panel if you're going to join the panel. All right. That being said, let's get started. All right. First item on the docket is from Engadget.com. Astronomers find first known exposed core of a gas giant. Gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn are known to have cores at their centers, but seeing those is difficult unless nature cooperates, that is. On the University of Warwick, astronomers have discovered what they say is the first known exposed gas giant core. TOI 849b is a planet about 730 light years away that's close to Neptune's size, nearly 4 times Earth's. But what an Earth-like density with an Earth-like density that suggests it should have accumulated layers of hydrogen and helium. It didn't. However, this indicates that something stripped the gas away, assuming it formed properly in the first place. The team found the planet by using data from NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Survey satellite and refining it using telescopes from the Chile-based Next Generation Transit Survey and La Silla Observatory. This included gauging the mass of the planet by studying the slight changes in the light spectrum from the celestial body's wobble. It's not certain that what led to the naked Jovian world, but there are 2 theories. TOI 849b is so close to its star that it completes an orbit in 18 hours, raising the possibility that tidal disruptions or a planetary collision stripped it of gas. Evaporation due to starlight is a possibility, but wouldn't account for all of the lost gas. This could also be a failed gas giant where a gap in the formative dust disk or a late formation robbed the planet of gas. More observations will be necessary to determine just what materials are part of the core. Even so, this is notably simply for showing that these kind of planets can exist. Like other recent findings, it's illustrating how complex the cosmos can be. Yeah, this is interesting. I'm always perplexed by how they're able to determine, whether or not it has what features in terms of the makeup of a sun or a planet that's 730 light years away. Okay. I understand we have, really good telescopes and radio telescopes and so on and so forth, but I can't imagine that they can look at something that much under the microscope or under the telescope for that matter and say, well, it has this many, it rotates around, its sun this many times, or, it has this kind of gas on it. How would they know all of that? That's really interesting from my perspective. I always find that interesting that they're able to determine all these things, but this is good information if they did find it. What are we going to do with that information? I don't know. To be quite honest, no one living right now will be able to travel to that planet anytime soon. Not even in the next 500 years, to my knowledge. I don't think that would be possible. So it's always good stuff for that they found something like this. All right, let me jump to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from Cakes and Global. Chinese self-driving truck firm aims to cover most of US by 2024. This is interesting. Too Simple, a self-driving truck firm splitting its operation between China and the US, has laid out a plan to build an autonomous freight network that will stretch across 48 US states by 2024. Okay, it's only 3 years from now. 5-year-old Too Simple plans to roll out the network in 3 phases in partnership with local logistics operators, including UPS, which is one of its backers, as well as Express Enterprises and McLean, according to a WeChat post by the company Thursday. By 2021, the network will provide autonomous delivery services on routes between a cluster of southwestern U.S. cities such as Houston and San Antonio. Okay, 2021 is next year. Keep that in mind. By 2022, Too Simple will start connecting the East Coast and the West Coast by offering routes connecting Los Angeles with Jacksonville, Florida, the Post said. So you're talking before the next president, they're going to be connecting autonomous trucks across the country. Okay, this is what's happening. I mean, we talked about this many times before. So by 2024, it will expand its autonomous operations to cover transportation arteries in 48 U.S. states, the Post added. Too Simple said it already operates business on 7 routes between Phoenix, Tucson, El Paso, and Dallas, and plans to establish a new logistics center in Dallas in the 3rd quarter to serve customers from the economically developed Texas Triangle. Too Simple's ultimate goal is to set up a transportation network consisting of a mapped routes connecting hundreds of terminals to enable all-weather autonomous freight operations. The company's president, Lu Chang, said in a statement, Too Simple, which is backed by UPS and internet stalwart Sina, also has a presence in China where it is testing autonomous tracks and has, I think this is spelled wrong, and has research and development centers in Beijing and Shanghai. 2024 is not that far away, okay? Before we have another president, before the next presidential cycle is over, they'll have autonomous trucks crisscrossing the United States. Okay, we've talked about this many times before that, automation, autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, all this stuff is coming quicker than anybody can imagine, okay? The idea that this isn't going to happen, you're dead wrong, according to these people, okay? Too Simple already has autonomous vehicles operating in Southwest from Arizona and Mexico and these places. So the idea that this can't happen and this, this won't take place until 2045, you're wrong. 2024 is what they're pushing for. Okay, this is what's going on. And so many people, at least in this community, are pretending that they don't need to be worried about these things. Good luck. Good luck. All right, let me jump to the next item on the docket. All right, next item on the docket is from Electrek. Eric Buell's Fuel reveals electric bike and moped prototypes, discusses future. I like this picture, man. Not a big fan of the motorcycle, but the the EV bike is pretty slick. Okay, the pedal bike is pretty slick. Let me spin this out. Eric Buell has a storied history in the motorcycle industry, with the latest chapter written at his electric bicycle and e-motorcycle startup Fuel. Now Eric is sharing his insight on the future of the electric two-wheeled industry, and also showing us brand new prototype designs that Fuel has been working on. Just over a year ago, Fuel went live with sales of its first long-range electric bicycle, a dual battery and belt drive model known as the Fuel Fluid. The company also has a $10,000 electric motorcycle in the works, the Fuel Flow. And until today, we had assumed that those two vehicles had been enough to keep Eric and the rest of the team at Fuel busy, but that wasn't the case. They have apparently been working on a number of new designs that they've just shared with us, focusing on higher spec electric vehicles and mopeds, as well as light electric motorcycles. The move towards more built up two-wheelers makes sense for the motorcycle visionary Eric Buell, who has built his career on pushing the envelope of motorcycle design. Eric explained his philosophy in continuing to innovate with electric bicycles, with simultaneously developing larger and more powerful electric two-wheelers, and a statement provided by Electric. Well, certainly e-bicycles are important. They started the green revolution. E-bikes are light, fun to ride, and affordable, but they do not meet the needs of everyone in urban and suburban environments. There is more to urban mobility than e-bikes. Together with step-through mopeds and electric motorcycles, e-bikes can help transform how we experience urban environments. Not a big fan of this contraption, but I get it. One of the first new prototypes that Eric unveiled is an update to the Fuel Fluid, known as the Fluid 2. It expands upon the traditional diamond frame seen in the original Fluid and transforms it into something much more akin to an electric moped. We've seen designs somewhat similar before, such as News Aero EB01 high-speed electric bicycles. But Eric's offerings adds the extra design elements that we've continued to expect from Fuel. So this is one of the bikes. Eric also shared details on a Delta Trike format e-bike with us, adopting an upright style similar to the Targa family e-cargo bike that we recently reviewed. Yeah, I think what happens in the bike industry, the bicycle industry, is that there's only so many different ways that you can actually design a bike. I mean, how many different ways can you design a bike? There are two wheels, you have a frame, and you have a sprocket, and you have a battery and a hub electric motor. There's not that many different ways you can really design a bike at this point, unless you want to change the materials: titanium, carbon fiber, composite, those sort of things. That that's pretty much where you're going to be able to change the design on a bicycle. Like I said, everything's going to pretty much start looking the same anyways. It's just a matter of material design, what goes into it. What kind of seat is it using? What kind of battery, capacity does it have? What's the range on it? How fast does it charge? Those are the things that are really going to matter. How light it is. I think at some point, in order to get more mass adoption of micro transportation, you're going to have to come up with a more liberal program of ownership, and that may come through shared ownership, platforms, where people can kind of check them out for 4 hours or for 8 hours and bring them back, or even lease them if you use it frequently enough and you pass the last mile. You may have to actually come up with some more comprehensive systems of ownership of these things, because they're too expensive out the gate. No one's going to spend $10,000 on a bike when they can just go out and go buy a fucking car. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so the cost is what's prohibiting most of it right now. It's just too much. But there's only so many different ways that you're actually going to be able to design a bike. I'm not sure why it's so expensive to begin with. Even a car is not that expensive. I mean, you can get a Prius used with substantial battery life left in its battery, and it doesn't cost $10,000. I think a Prius from like 2013 with what 100,000 miles on it, that thing probably costs about 10 grand, easy. I mean, why would anybody want to buy a bicycle that's only going to be used for seasonal purposes? I mean, you're not going to ride it in the rain or in the snow. You can only ride it when it's dry. So, all right, let me jump to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from Engadget.com. Researchers trained a quadruped robot to cross a balanced beam. A 4-leg, 90-kilogram robot can cross a bridge only 6 centimeters wide. Interesting. Expand this out. While 4-leg robots can achieve impressive feats like pulling an airplane or climbing a fence, they still have a few limitations. In most cases, they need a fairly large surface to walk on. A team of Italian robotics researchers is looking to change that. They've created a robotic controller that allows a quadruped robot to walk across a thin beam. The 4-leg robot can balance on just 2 legs and walk heel to toe. In digital simulations, the controller allowed a 90-kilogram robot to cross a bridge only 6 centimeters wide. In a video, the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, researchers demonstrate how a robot equipped with a controller maintains balance on 2 feet, even when it's pushed around. The robot can even balance on 2 legs as it adjusts to different heights. The IIT team detailed their findings in a paper available. So let's look at this this video real quick. Now that's pretty awesome. I have to say myself, that is pretty damn awesome. In the US, Boston Dynamics spots is arguably the most popular four-legged robot, but as researchers develop robotic controllers like IITs, we'll likely see more quadruped applications. So what does this all really mean in the grand scheme of things? I think you're going to see a lot of these robots get used in space exploration, okay? I think you're going to see some of these moons around Jupiter and Saturn get explored for all intents and purposes. If they have these capabilities, because it's application specific, you wouldn't probably use something like this on a wide open desert area. But in special situations where you need to cross canyons and things of that nature, this is where it comes in handy. And so I don't see this stuff being particularly useful on the ground here, but just as me personally, but I do see it being used in places like Mars and different moons and stuff like that, because it has all of these sort of unique capabilities that, okay, you can use it for military applications, but at the same time, in space exploration, this is where it's going to be key. You're going to need it to go across different sort of terrain that is not suitable for humans to even cross or even be existing on. You know, I mean, we've been really instrumental in pushing the idea that robotics, you know, you should get your kids into robotics. This is where things matter in terms of STEM. Robotics is really key. Autonomy, artificial intelligence, okay? Artificial intelligence, robotics, you know, machine learning. That stuff is really gonna matter. Okay, this stuff, this robot isn't just moving on its own. There's a lot of mechanical engineering behind it as well. I mean, that's obvious because it's robotics, but at the same time, artificial intelligence, machine learning, things like that, that's how it's able to pick up all this type of stuff. And so this is going to be important going forward. You know, we talk about this a lot, but space exploration is going to be key in the next 20 years. Okay, it's going to be key. If you're having a kid right now, you should get them acclimated in something like this. Don't forget about, you know, IT and help desk and stuff like that. That's for right now. If you have a kid that's 5, 6, 7 years old, this is what you get them into. This is exactly what you get them into. This makes sense. Okay. This makes sense. All right, let me move on to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from Engadget.com. House approves $100 billion in broadband funding in rural areas. This bill would also make high-speed internet more affordable. $100 billion they're going to spend on internet connectivity. Just imagine that. This is supposed to be a superpower, first world power, and we still don't have high-speed internet in a lot of areas in the United States. Imagine that. The U.S. House of Representatives approved the Moving Forward Act this week, a $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill that puts $100 billion toward bringing high-speed broadband to underserved areas. The ambitious bill also allocates funds towards transportation and clean energy initiatives, like $500 billion for rebuilding highways, bridges, and rail, and $70 billion for promoting renewable energy. The main objective of the broadband portion of the bill is to bring high-speed internet to unserved and underserved rural, suburban, and urban communities, as well as adequate support for it, according to a Moving Forward Act fact sheet from the Department of Transportation. It prioritizes remote learning for children by providing digital equipment and outfitting school buses and school libraries with Wi-Fi. This bill also provides broadband payment support for low-income households and the recently unemployed. The full version of the Moving Forward Act isn't likely to pass in the Republican-controlled Senate. However, the broadband-related amendments may still have a chance, said Matt Wood, president of policy and general counsel at Free Press Action, a media advocacy group. While the party line vote on the full bill is a fact of current politics, no one should make the mistake of thinking broadband provisions are partisan, Wood said. People in the cities and rural areas alike need better broadband at better prices, no matter their party or politics. The bill is just one of many recent efforts by the government to close the digital divide. In February 2019, President Donald Trump unveiled the American Broadband Initiative aimed at bringing broadband to rural America. Earlier this year, the Federal Communications Commission committed $20.4 billion to the same end. So the money's always been on the table, okay? The money's always been there. It's just a matter of whether or not the government was willing to spend it. In all these years, they just didn't do anything with it. Okay, there's multiple ways of laying down high-speed connectivity, and they just did not want to spend the money. Okay, they didn't want to do it. But this is where we are. Okay, there's enough money for F-35 fighter jets and aircraft carriers, but nothing for providing high-speed internet access. You know, South Korea has some of the best internet. Japan has some of the best internet. Even Western Europe, some of the best internet. And yet you have the United States that's still lagging behind. There's places in Massachusetts that don't have fiber, okay, Fios. They're still using DSL, coax cable, you know, from RCN and some of these other companies, and getting nosebleeding prices, man. It's ridiculous. I know there's been efforts to push for municipal broadband, basically talking about treating broadband internet as a utility, no different than water and electricity, and creating funding for it. Okay, and tapping it onto your public institutions, you know, piping it from there. A lot of your roads and your streets already have fiber pretty much piped in there for government use, but why can't they leverage the same cable connectivity, or at least the conduits, to actually lay down public internet? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They just don't want to spend the money. That's really what it comes down to. They kept the money for themselves for all intents and purposes. But now suddenly they're coming out with $100 billion in investing. Well, China's already had that. Okay, South Korea has already had that. Japan has already had that. Why are we still lagging behind? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, even Cuba is getting high-speed internet as we speak. Okay, the pipeline is coming from Venezuela up to Cuba. So that's what's going on here. Buying cheap laptops like Chromebooks and stuff like that, that's cool and all, but I don't think that should have been a part of the bill. I think that, you know, they should have left that up to the states and the cities and local governments to figure out their own plan of providing computing technology to underserved and unserved areas. We got Nagone 11 on the panel. All right, let's get to the next item on the docket. All right, this is from Engadget.com. The UK buys a 45% stake in broke satellite startup OneWeb. After losing access to the EU's satellite navigation system Galileo due to the Brexit, the UK is hoping to replace it with OneWeb satellites. A government-led consortium has won an auction for the satellite internet company, which filed for bankruptcy in March as it sought a buyer. if a U.S. bankruptcy court approves the bid next week, the UK and India's Bharti Global will both pay $500 million for a stake of about 45% each. They fund this, the full restart of OneWeb's operations, the company said. Creditors would own the remaining 10%. The deal is expected to close by the end of the year, pending regulatory approval. The government previously planned to build its own Galileo replacement with the help of other members of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance: Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the US. The project was put on hold in May just before the publication of a feasibility study. The estimated cost had risen by then to 5 billion euros or $6.2 billion. The UK Satellite Applications Catapult is working on a white paper that would lay out a method of using OneWeb constellation for a SAT-SAV system. It should be SAT-NAV. However, some experts have suggested that hosting a GPS-style system on OneWeb satellite might not be viable. For one thing, the constellation is at a far lower orbit than satellites for major positioning systems, such as Galileo and GPS, around 20,000 kilometers up. Since early 2019, OneWeb launched 79 of 650 planned 5G satellites for its initial constellation. If you want to replace GPS for military-grade systems where you need encrypted, secure signals that are precise to centimeters, I'm not sure you can do that on satellites as small as OneWeb's. University of Space and Policy expert Dr. Bledwin Bowen told The Guardian last week, it's bolting an unproven technology onto a mega constellation that's designed to do something else. It's a tech and business gamble. Meanwhile, Bharti owns the third largest mobile provider on the planet in Bharti Airtel, which has more than 425 million customers. OneWeb says the company gives it a near-term commercial opportunity, though its presence across South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, where the terrain necessitates the use of satellite-based connectivity. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense because they don't have any ground infrastructure in place. Satellites and 5G make a lot of sense, but the orbit is a little bit too low. I think if they get it up about 500 kilometers, they might be better suited for that. So. I'm not surprised. I mean, we talked about Q-based satellites the last couple of years. The reason why we talk about that is because the implementation is so easy. Okay, you can design these things with off-the-shelf components from Home Depot. Okay, Home Depot and Radio Shack. At least when Radio Shack was still a major player in the electronics game. But you can go to DigiKey on if you Google DigiKey, you can build your own satellite. All the components are there. Let me make sure. Make sure I show this real quick. All right, this is DigiKey. Okay, this is the world's largest selection of electronic components available for immediate shipment. Anything that you need for building anything electronic is on here, okay? I've been using them since early college, okay? You're talking early 2000s. They used to have this thick catalog that you would get like once a year or something like that, or once a season or something like that. And it would have every single component that you can think of. Okay, every single component. Let me see if I can find. All right, let's click on this and see what this is. educational kits. Yeah, let's click on this. And so this is an example of the sort of systems that they have that you can buy, for learning purposes. So we're just going to click on this real quick. This is an educational Raspberry Pi laptop. Okay, you can start coding right off of it. It's already built for that purpose. So if you want to teach your kids how to program a Raspberry Pi, from a project perspective, this little do-it-yourself kit is actually suitable for that purpose. Okay, suitable for that purpose. It says 39 in stock. $284 for this. So it's not bad of a price. It could be worse. What was I looking for? Here it is right here, Raspberry Pi starter kit. Click on that. Yeah, this is what you would use to teach your kids how to get involved in coding and programming of these sort of turnkey solutions for development on proprietary systems, or I should say proprietary systems, but at least from a Raspberry Pi perspective, these sort of single board computers, SBCs. This is what you would actually buy. Okay, you'll buy these things, and there's a lot of components that you can get for it, like an Arduino, these sort of component controllers that can actually make motors move forward or backwards or turn left to right, turn lights on, turn lights off, those sort of things. Raspberry Pis are excellent for this. Okay, and so if you want to get involved in these areas, there's a lot of good do-it-yourself kits out there on the market that you can't go wrong with. All right. And so when you start talking about building out these sort of cube satellites that we've been talking about, a cube-based satellite, you can go right through DigiKey and you can order every single component. 90% of the components you can get from DigiKey and from Home Depot. Okay, with a little bit of ingenuity, you can build your own satellite. All right, this is from Engadget.com. Facebook shared user data with developers it shouldn't have again. So this is a constant issue for Facebook. Facebook has disclosed yet another instance of developers receiving users' data they shouldn't have. According to the company, at least a few thousand developers were able to access some personal details from inactive users who hadn't used their apps in more than 90 days. Under Facebook's guidelines, developers shouldn't receive data from users once they become inactive, which Facebook defines as those who haven't used the app in more than 90 days. The company introduced the rule in 2018 after the Cambridge Analytica scandal forced the social network to tighten its developers' policies. Facebook didn't disclose how long the issue had been around before it was fixed or how many users have been impacted. The company said it affected approximately 5,000 developers from the last several months. Facebook also didn't specify exactly what data may have been improperly shared, but said the users had previously authorized the apps to receive the data in question. We haven't seen evidence that this issue resulted in sharing information that wasn't inconsistent with the permissions people gave when they logged in using Facebook, the company wrote. Facebook noted it fixed the issue the day after it was discovered, and it plans to keep investigating. Yeah, because Facebook is basically a joke in terms of security. I myself don't have a Facebook account, and I don't plan on having one, but this is the reason why I don't have one. They can't seem to figure it out. Whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, there's too much data being leaked off of it. I don't understand it. All right, this last item is from TechCrunch. We need a new field of AI to combat racial bias. Since widespread protests over racial inequality began, IBM announced it would cancel its facial recognition programs to advance racial equity in law enforcement. Amazon suspended police use of its recognition software for 1 year to put in place stronger regulations to govern the ethical use of facial recognition technology. But we need more than regulatory change. The entire field of artificial intelligence must mature out of the computer science lab and accept the embrace of the entire community. We can develop amazing AI that works in the world in largely unbiased ways. But to accomplish this, AI can't be just a subfield of computer science and computer engineering like it is right now. We must create an academic discipline of AI that takes the complexity of human behavior into account. We need to move from computer science owned AI to computer science enabled AI. The problems of AI don't occur in the lab. They occur when scientists move the tech into the real world of people. Training data in the CS lab often lacks the context and complexity of the world you and I inhabit. This law perpetuates biases. AI-powered algorithms have been found to display bias against people of color and against women. In 2014, for example, Amazon found that an AI algorithm it developed to automate headhunting taught itself bias against female candidates. MIT researchers reported in January 2019 that facial recognition software is less accurate in identifying humans with darker pigmentation. Most recently, in a study late last year by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, researchers found evidence of racial bias in nearly 200 facial recognition algorithms. In spite of the countless examples of AI errors, the zeal continues. This is why the IBM and Amazon announcements generated so much positive news coverage.
Hey, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Oh, so I just want to ask, is that Asians too? Doesn't that have a negative effect on Asians as well?
Yeah, but because Asians make up such a small population of the United States. I mean, they just didn't mention it here, but it's more impactful when it goes after Black people because it just sees a blob. It doesn't actually identify any facial differences. It just sees a dark blob.
Okay.
Everybody gets concluded into that. Global use of artificial intelligence grew by 270% from 2015 to 2019, with the market expected to generate revenue of $118.6 billion by 2025. According to Gallup, nearly 90% of Americans are already using AI products in their everyday lives, often without realizing it. Beyond a 12-month hiatus, we must acknowledge that while building AI is a technology challenge, using AI requires non-software development, heavy disciplines such as social science, law, and politics. But despite our increasingly ubiquitous use of AI as a field of study is still lumped into the fields of CS and CE. At North Carolina State University, for example, algorithms in AI are taught in the CS program. MIT houses the study of AI under both CS and CE. AI must make it into humanities programs, race and gender studies, circular, and business schools. Let's develop an AI track in political science departments. In my own program at Georgetown University, we teach AI and machine learning concepts to, sorry about that. In my own program at Georgetown University, we teach AI and machine learning concepts to security studies students. This needs to become common practice. Without a broader approach to professionalization of AI, we will almost certainly perpetuate the biases and discriminatory practices in systems today. We just may discriminate at a lower cost, not a noble goal for technology. We require the the intentional establishment of a field of AI whose purpose is to understand the development of neural networks and the social context into which the technology will be deployed. In computer engineering, a student studies programming and control of fundamentals. In computer science, they study computational programmatic theory, including the biases or the basis of algorithmic learning. These are solid foundations for the study of AI, but they should only be considered components. These foundations are necessary for understanding the field of AI, not sufficient on their own. For the population to gain comfort with broad deployment of AI so that tech companies like Amazon and IBM and countless others can deploy these innovations, the entire discipline needs to move beyond the CS lab. Those who work in disciplines like psychology, sociology, and anthropology and neuroscience are needed. Understanding human behavior patterns, biases, and data generation processes are needed. I could have created the software I developed to identify human trafficking, money laundering, and other illicit behaviors without my background in behavioral science. Responsibly managing machine learning processes is no longer just a desirable component of progress, but a necessary one. We have to recognize the pitfalls of human bias and errors of replicating these biases in the machines of tomorrow. And the social sciences and humanities, we provide the keys. We can only accomplish this if a new field of AI encompassing all of these disciplines is created. I sort of disagree with this. And here's why. You don't need a degree to understand AI. Okay, you can actually go to Udacity and actually get a nano degree in AI. Okay. I think what needs to happen is that if you're going to take an AI program, you need to take a dual major. Okay. Either you pair it up with political science, not political science. Either you pair it up with law, or you pair it up with sociology or some other neuroscience or something like that. You can't just take it by itself. I think taking it away from computer science and computer engineering is a bad move, because it undermines the whole entire programs itself. Because at the end of the day, it's still a science and it's still an engineering based study. And so for me, I think adding a third component would be information systems. Okay, information systems is the other leg to the stool of IT when it comes to computer science, computer engineering. Information systems comes in there as well. And so where does information systems lie? Information systems is basically information technology from an academic standpoint. If you add AI to an information systems program and you encompass those areas of criminal justice, or if you just want to say law, right? Criminal justice and political science and so on and so forth. These things could actually be matriculated down into the community colleges. Because what happens if you leave it just computer engineering and computer science, it really marginalizes the associate's degree field, where most people of color, Black people more importantly, are always going to be enrolling into at that level. And so you're never going to get the participation of diversity and inclusion from Black people if they can't actually enroll in these programs, because they can't afford to go to those sort of D1, D2, D3, D4 institutions. And so they get left out of the curriculum and the enrollment of it, because you've taken it from a perspective where it shouldn't have been, where it needs to be, but you're trying to put it in a place where it should not be. You're trying to make it easily accessible to one particular group, but not the actual group that's impacted by it. That's where I have a problem with this. Okay, I have a huge problem with that. And I think that, the more you really look at this, the more you really look at this, Black people, especially Black men, are really impacted by this, but they're not at the table of curating and cultivating the technology. And I think it's disingenuous to have a conversation about artificial intelligence and its racial bias when you need more Black people involved in it. Okay, so why don't we go recruit more Black people for this? But see, they don't want to do that. But that's a lot of the benign racism involved in cultivating these sort of programs. Okay, what they're trying to do is what they're trying to do is liberalize the AI programs academically, from computer science and computer engineering down to something like liberal arts. That's wrong. That's the wrong approach. That's the complete wrong approach. I think if you're going to go for AI, I think you should take on another minor that is structured in a way that runs parallel with the system. And unfortunately, that benign racism is still there. Okay, it's still there. For whatever reason, these people, the ones who want to liberalize these programs, also have a motive too. So just like BLM has a lot of people who are not Black in it, there's a motive there. Okay, there's a motive there. People who care so much about Black lives, they themselves don't even live around melanated people, so to speak. They don't even live around these people. Okay, from what I've seen, from my experience on the ground, they don't live around these people at all. And so they want this sort of diversity and inclusion and solidarity, but they only want solidarity where it's convenient for them, not where it's convenient for the victim or those impacted by the biases and the racial biases in AI and the racial biases in the system itself. So it's a really difficult line to really walk when it comes to AI and racial bias, because like I said, the people most impacted by it have no say in it at all. Well, we should create more algorithms that are more inclusive. That's bullshit, in my opinion. That's bullshit. Because why didn't, if Black men or Black people in general, and Black men in particular, are going to be impacted by this because of the racial bias and the algorithms in AI, why aren't we pulling in more of these people? Why? Why aren't we pulling in more of these people so that they can have some equity in this? If Black lives really matter, then you would actually reach out to those impacted people and say, okay, let's bring them in here and let's actually shape this correctly. But see, that doesn't happen. And so that's the racism and the liberal talking points from these people. Okay, the benign racism and the liberal talking points from these people.
I'm coming to believe I don't think some of this is even benign anymore. I think it's more of almost a coded language. I don't believe that it's that benign anymore. Maybe there was a time I did, but I don't think it's that benign.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, well, it's benign in the sense that they're pulling it away from the structured system that's already in place. Okay, I get why you want to pull it from there, but why don't you want to pull in other people who are impacted by this at the same time? It shouldn't be one of the other. You shouldn't just pull it from computer science, computer engineering, and then say, okay, we leave it here. Let's make it, part of liberal arts. That's stupid. That doesn't solve anything. The people who are involved in writing, these racist algorithms, the racial bias in the algorithm, they should, they should be held accountable for what they've written. But we should also be pulling in more of those other people who are impacted by it at the same time and allowing them to correct all of the algorithms. There's enough Black people out there that can be enrolled in these sort of institutions that say, hey, let's look at it from this perspective. see, the Black perspective is never being taken into consideration because it's almost of no value to those people unless you're dead already, or unless you're in jail, right? The brother in Detroit who got
That's why I
arrested.
say it's not benign. That's why I say it's not benign. They understand that, but they're not moving on that because now you're talking about bringing a lot more people into the game. That's not benign. They do understand it. Just to think that they don't would be naive. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, so that's what's going on right now. Like I said, I think that this is the only approach that can really work. People are still trying to wrestle with this at the academic level. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot and wasting a lot of time. You don't need a whole different program for AI. I mean, just put the people who are impacted by it into the same program, and you'll get the results that's necessary for the change. All of this rigmarole and doing the Humpty dance and jumping over your leg to try to impress somebody, it doesn't seem to work. And so my take-home point is for more Black people, instead of trying to get into IT, get into the fourth industrialization aspect. Okay, fourth industrialization is about cyber-connected systems, AI, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning, robotics, connected systems for 5G and IoT. All of these things matter, cloud and blockchain. These things matter most. These are the emerging technologies that's going to impact Black people for the next 20 years. Okay, we just read an article at the beginning that said autonomous trucks between now and 2024 will be crisscrossing the highways, okay, from Too Simple, okay? 2021, they plan on expanding to Texas, and then from 2022, they're talking about going from Texas to Florida. And by 2024, they'll be in the Northeast, and handling all weather conditions, meaning that these vehicles will be able to drive through snow if they need to. This is where we are right now, 2024. You won't even have a new president by then. I mean, for right now, between now and next year, we'll still be on lockdown with COVID, with phased reopenings and things like that. They're moving at scale. And we're not even a part of the conversation. And so that's why we need to be having more of these conversations on a more weekly basis so that people have a better understanding that you don't need to be a big time, super elite programmer to be involved in these sort of areas of expertise and subject matter. You don't really need to be that. You can have an associate's degree from a community college and as a business analyst or criminal justice or something like that, and then go take a minor program online for 6 months, from Udacity or edx.org, okay, and take a 6-month program and get a certificate or a nano degree, so to speak, and get involved in this part of the market. We're just not really at the curation and the cultivation of the technology, and that's a part of the issue. Although I'd be interested in seeing how this affects Indians, because Indians, for all intents and purposes, do share a lot of the complexions in terms of darker hues and whatnot. And so I'd be interested in how that works on them. I know Israel and India have worked on a national ID system with some artificial intelligence involved in that as well. So I'd be interested to see how the results came from that. That was probably over a year or so ago that was done. So I haven't heard anything else since then, but I'd be interested in seeing what the results were for that. Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with Black and AI, but again, Black and AI is not involved in the curation of all of this. If that was the case, you wouldn't have racial bias in AI to begin with. Okay, it's nice that they have a platform, but they're not involved in the cultivation of the technology. that was the case, you wouldn't have this article. And you wouldn't have that brother in Detroit who was arrested under the pretenses that his face showed up in an AI recognition, facial recognition database. So you wouldn't have that issue. Hey, let me give a shout out to everyone who showed up. Phantom Mute, PCU, 3D Burns, Black Scorpion, Peace. Albert, PCU as well. Wacky Water O, Shalom. D Raptor, Shalom to you as well. Black Scorpion, peace. Raul, salute to you. Nate, peace to you as well. Real life is not in cyberspace. Peace and hi to you as well. Nicole Ali, good evening to you. Long time no speak and no see. You've been on hiatus for a minute. What's going on, Gabe? King Damiete, good evening to you, fam. Yeah, you be sleeping on the brain trust, man. But yeah, that's the type of stuff that's going on. Let me see if I can pull up the Udacity link. I think there's an actual Black woman who's teaching the program there. SDY, PCU, man. I've noticed this too. I've looked at our channel while we're live, and it doesn't show the red button or the red light on it to show that we're live. I think there's some stuff going on, man, with the algorithm too. I'm not sure why it's doing that to us. You know, we can be live, but the red light is not on there. I'm not sure why. I'm kind of suspecting that maybe Zoom, because sometimes when I set the live stream time, let's say if I decide to go live tonight at 9 o'clock, I might go live at 8:30. And so I wonder if that might be impacting it as well. I don't know. It shouldn't do it as long as I'm live. That's the way it should work. It should show. Hey, what's going on, Black Scorpion? Yeah, and so this is Udacity, the School of Artificial Intelligence. AI is one of the fastest growing and most transformational technologies of our time, with 2.3 million new jobs opening up by 2020. This is where we are right now, 2020. Spend 10 hours per week to advance your career. So, you know, AI for healthcare. You know, Intel just opened this new program up too with Udacity, Intel Edge AI for IoT developers. Intro to machine learning with TensorFlow. This is a very popular platform as well. TensorFlow is what Google uses for Google's AI. AI product manager, intro to machine learning with PyTorch, AI program with Python, artificial intelligence for trading, computer vision, natural language processing, so NLP. Deep reinforcement learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning engineer, deep learning, AI for business leaders. Yeah, you can't go wrong with this. You can't go wrong with this. So I'll drop the link in the chat, man. If you haven't really signed up for this or you don't know anything about it, you can look into it for yourself. The first month is free. There's a, you know, here it says right here, last chance to get free access for 1 month. Offer ends July 8th. Today's the 6th, so you better move on it if you plan on trying to get your weight up out here. Yeah, James Washington, that's true. That's true. He says that's just it. They're going to encode in white supremacy to continue the ruling class. That's how they stay on top. Yeah, Putin said this a couple of years ago, back in 2018. He said, whoever rules AI, whoever controls AI rules the world. And he's talking about China. He's talking about all these other nations. Right now, you know, China and America at the forefront, you know, number one and number two in terms of artificial intelligence, and then comes, you know, Germany and France. Um, you know, Russia's at the bottom of all of this. I'm pretty sure they'll catch up at some point, but there is not one country in Africa that's not even on the map. Okay, and this would include Black people as a whole. Black people are just not there at the cultivation level, and so I think what's happening here is that this sort of fourth industrialization is shifting quicker than Black people can actually keep up with this sort of digital transformation. Um, we ourselves need a cultural transformation to go from this sort of do nothing state and play catch up and use technology with do something and actually cultivate the technology so that we can be a part of that and we don't get left behind. I mean, you could have argued before that, you know, the other industrializations kind of left us behind because we didn't have the means to really compete in those areas. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't disagree with that. You know, Black people weren't going to be mass producing vehicles at that level, you know, at that scale. There was no, you know, car company that, you know, Black people could have leveraged, you know, in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s that would have been competitive at that point. We just did not have the means due to a variety of factors. We weren't able to compete in those areas. You could have argued that we competed in medicine, but there was no massive, you know, pharmaceutical and life sciences companies run by Black people back then. It just wasn't like that. And so that's what happens, you know, if we don't really take this stuff really seriously. Like I said, when I went to the continent in February and March, these are the conversations that they were having over there, okay? They weren't talking about going to college and stuff like, it was like, this is the technology you need to learn right now, and this is how we're gonna do it. And we plan to be doing this by 2030. They have a game plan in place. I'm not really seeing that here in the States from Black people that, you know, pre-COVID, pre-protest, that conversation was not being had. I didn't see anything like that, you know. The culture is different here than it is over there. They have a very collective mindset over there. Over here, it's not really like that. It's more about, you know, rugged individualism, and, you know, whoever learns it, and whoever doesn't. That over here, it's not like that. And so, different approach to you know, to industrialization. And I think we can learn a lot from what they're doing over there. They're doing immense things that I think they're very impressive for the little bit of resources that they do have. SDY says, Mike V, how much pull does Udacity edX have on Black resumes when entering into fourth industrial jobs? Well, see, the thing is, fourth industrialization isn't so much about getting a job, but it's actually about more of a gig economy. I think what eventually will happen is that these startups will contract out a lot of work because they run very lean. And so if your skill set is in machine learning or something like that, you'll probably contract with them for maybe about a couple of years or for however long the project is going to go for. Okay, most projects are 6 months at bare minimum, and so in my experience, nothing ever happens on time. And a contract can go from 6 months to 12 months really quickly. And then from 12 months to 18 months really quick. Or actually a little bit slower, but not uncommon that it gets extended because things just don't work on time, especially with smaller teams, because it's just not enough human capital to go around and not enough time in the day. And so what I find is that people who are not really in the industry per se will offer their opinion on fourth industrialization, but, you know, all the people that we've talked to on this channel who are in the industry say opposite to what's being said in the chat. And people are entitled to have their own opinions, but, you know, we don't really need those sort of views if you're not really in that industry. You know, I've worked at several startups, and all of them have said the same exact thing. You know, they're not really looking for a degree. If you can actually have that sort of background, that actually matters. Okay, I just got finished talking to some recruiters this weekend that they were actually looking for Black talent. Okay, everybody's on this headhunting spree looking for Black talent now, especially with all this protesting. And
well, I can speak on that.
Yeah, and what you have is people who will say, "Well, you know, Udacity and EDX doesn't matter." What are you talking about? We just had last year. We had an article from Mark Cuban. Everything that the Brain Trust have been saying, he's using the same template. I'm not sure why people are saying otherwise, right? We had what's this other mogul, billion-dollar mogul, who used the same exact template. You had Vivian Ibrahim, who has come here many a times in the last few months and said, you guys are talking about stuff that nobody else is talking about, and this stuff is really relevant. But you always have this naysayer who's always saying, well, you know, it doesn't really have that much pull. Yeah, okay. We'll take you seriously when you start hiring people. Let us know. Go ahead. Oh, no.
Yeah, but you know, you're talking to people who, you know, I mean, you know, we already know, you know who and what we're talking with. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of companies now that have diversity hiring initiatives, and they're looking definitely for Black people. I have a position right now for you know, a machine learning position with a company, and I talked to one of the managers just today, and he was like, you know, I was like, you know, I've got, you know, I know we're looking for diverse people. He goes, I really want to have someone fill this role who is diverse, you know, and I was like, okay, so, you know, I'm gonna make sure I get diverse candidates. So he's asking for diversity in this role, and he's asking for it. And it's a role that's paying some pretty nice bread, but at the end of the day, they're looking for people who are definitely diverse, and that's something a lot of companies have. But I think they're pushing it up a lot more right now. So I think we're going to see a lot more as far as Rex coming out with a lot of just straight out diversity in hiring. So they're looking to get the right people in place. But if you certainly are a Black man or so forth like that, and you have that skill set, I pretty much think right now it's pretty much 100% guarantee you're probably going to get hired for right now. How long that'll last, I don't know. But it's I definitely am getting diversity initiatives from clients, and they are definitely actively looking for minority candidates, as they call them. So you know, we'll take a look at that. Maybe Saturday, Mike, we can go over some of these recs and stuff. And I don't know if we have anybody who's in our chat who really might be that qualified, but it's good to put that out there.
Yeah, and I think when I talked to a couple of the recruiters this weekend, these weren't from recruiting firms. They were actually from startups here locally, and you know, they were asking because they know me from some of the meetups, and they said that hey, if you know anybody, there's a cool bonus in for you. Let us know. We would love to bring on some new talent. Okay. One of the things about Udacity and EDX is that it's a very popular platform. Once you complete the program, it actually attaches to your LinkedIn and it updates everybody on LinkedIn that you completed this program. That's what they look for. Okay, I talked to recruiters probably. I mean, I got recruiters in my phone, not even on LinkedIn, in my phone, who text me. They don't even call me, they text me. Okay. People I don't even have any real sort of investment into. They actually just communicate with me on a regular basis. Hey, Mike, what's going on? What's the new stuff that's popping? What do you think is going on? Do you know anybody who can do this? Do you know anybody who can do that? No. Before the lockdown, I actually went to a Celtics game because I got invited by one of these big time startups, because I know one of the higher ups from a couple of years ago. We had hung out before. We met at a bar at one of the meetups, and he was like, "Hey, man, I'd love to keep in contact with you, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." We've been in contact ever since. I've never worked for them, but that's the sort of rapport that I have with these people.
Hey, Mike, a lot of these guys who you talk with, are they also looking for diversity in candidates as far as people who have a diverse background? Or they're looking to take anyone? How do you feel that they're looking with respect to their hiring initiative?
They're looking for specifically Black people. Okay, they're looking specifically for Black people, and so because they don't have that sort of social network pull, because they don't have Black people in their circles like that, right? So you get somebody like myself who comes from a certain area, who has a broader network of Black people that I communicate with on a regular basis. Who do you know, Mike V, you know, in this area, can they help us out here and here and here? We're willing to teach. That's the new thing now. We're willing to teach, right? And so not every company is going to be, you know, this 10-foot tall racist company, right? There's still some small companies, small startups that are saying, "Hey, we got about 30 people on our staff. Would love to have about 2 or 3, you know, roles filled with Black people, if we can, right? We would like to have some of this diversity." So I don't want to distract anyone from thinking that if you go to Udacity, this isn't really going to help you. It doesn't have much pull. You know, that's not true. That's not true. We've covered probably about a dozen articles that say otherwise. Even Mark Cuban has said, you know, this is a great platform. I don't, you know, he's a billionaire. I mean, at what point do you not stop and say, you know, that, you know, you should try something different? You don't need to have a 4-year degree to understand artificial intelligence. If you, there was an article that we covered before. One of the subscribers from this channel actually took one of the boot camps they have recommended, I think like a year or so ago. And he ended up working here locally in Boston for one of the major tech firms. Actually, he worked one floor below me in the same building. And so I hear things like that, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I think if you're not really into mentorship and IT coaching and really just, you know, really communicating on a regular basis with other Black people about ventures and new prospects and stuff like that, I don't think it's a good idea to really say, well, this doesn't work, and you don't have any real data to really back it up. I think that's really discouraging to people. Oh, okay. So he says, Nagone is a recruiter. This is Gabe A asking the question. Ask him if he sees any recs with edX or Udacity as requirements. I'm just asking the question. It's not so much about using Udacity or edX as requirements. No one really does that. No one ever says, you know, Duke University or NC State or something like that. They don't really talk like that. In my experience, they don't talk like that. Maybe Nagone might know something different.
Oh, you asking me something, Mike? I'm sorry.
That's what he's asking. He's asking me that. He says Nagone is a recruiter. Ask him if he sees any recs with edX or Udacity as requirements. And so that wasn't the original question.
No, that wasn't the original question. No, I mean, I told him Saturday we'll, possibly, with our tech talks, we'll go over some recs and get into that in a little more detail. Yeah. I've got quite a few on the table here, so I haven't gone through every single thing, but it might be in there. And if it is, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Yeah. SDY, he asked the original question, how much pull does Udacity and edX have on Black resumes when entering into fourth industrial jobs? And I think the question might be a bit misguided, but because no one really uses resumes per se, right? People get pulled from LinkedIn based on search profile when recruiters are actually looking for talent. And so my answer to that question is that when you complete these programs, it updates your LinkedIn profile as long as you link your LinkedIn profile to the program itself. And it lets everybody else know in LinkedIn that you've completed this program. That's how that works. Okay, I don't know how they've done it. I'm assuming it's just an API pull, but that's how that works. And so that's why the platforms are so popular. They wouldn't be popular if they didn't work as well as it's advertised. Okay, there's too many people that I know who have graduated from, have completed Udacity programs and have done exceptionally well in the hiring process. So I'm not sure why anybody would say otherwise. And so that's the sort of perspective that I know of, and the articles that we've covered, the people that we've spoken to. I get emails on a weekly basis. Raymond Women can tell you. Okay, she sees them. Okay, she handles a lot of that stuff. So I think we're getting too far into the weeds, and we're at the end of the live stream anyways. And so, unless there's any other questions. Oh, who's this? Edmore Red Pill 81 says, I've been with the same retail company for 20 years, and I've seen how automation has eliminated a lot of jobs. I'm currently in the process of signing up for a 22-week full stack boot camp for $1,800. Yeah, do that, man. Let us know how that works. Let us know how that works, man. 22 weeks, man. That's a got your work cut out for you there. So, but I don't doubt that something good is going to come out of that boot camp for you, if nothing else. Boot camps are just made to really cram a lot of information into your brain. And if you have the the capacity to absorb all that information, by all means do it. By all means do it, man. I tried to do a boot camp a couple of years ago off of Python, not Python. I forget what it was. I think it was like data science or something like that. But I think we started off with Python, and my Chromebook at the time was not able to keep up with a lot of the coursework for whatever reason. I think this Chrome in general is just not a good platform to code upon. So. Yeah, he said it's called New Camp. I've never heard of it before. That might be local to you. But yeah, man, good luck, man. Do your thing. Love to hear progress, every single week, what you're learning and how you feel about it. Nicole, do you have any other last comments you want to make before we close up?
No.
All right. Yeah, DE Raptor, I have to go back in the email and look at that that link. I didn't get a chance to put it on the docket. Yeah, and there it is. Idmore Red Pill says, the boot camp specifically told us to avoid Chromebooks. Yeah, there's some stuff about Chromebooks, man. I can't really figure it out. And when I did it, it was an older version of the Chromebook. Even though the Chromebook had an Intel processor on it, it really just did not work very well. I thought it would have worked best based on its portability and its lightness, but it really wasn't that effective. And I would not recommend it for coding at all. It's pretty horrible. All right, hit the like button, everyone, and shalom.